We're going to know a lot after Monday, I believe, because the WNBA owners will sit down with Nafesia Collier and Kelsey Plum. Okay, the WNBA vice presidents, as well as Nike Agumake, the president.
There are less than 100 days until the WNBA season starts, and the team owners are finally meeting with the players for the first time since fall. This Monday meeting in New York City is really important. It will show us if there's even going to be a season this year. Right now, the two sides don't agree at all. They're not even answering each other's ideas.
WNBA and the Players Union will meet in person in New York City on Monday for the first time since the fall amid stalled CBA negotiations. Talking to reporters at Unrivaled, WNBA VP Kelsey Plum said she and Nafesia Collier will travel to New York after their teams play each other in Miami on Sunday night.
Kelsey Plum and Nafesia Collier are flying to New York right after their game Sunday night. Nika Agumake, the new union president, will be there too. What makes this meeting special is that the team owners themselves are coming. Not just league officials or people who work for them, the actual owners who pay everyone. This shows how serious things have gotten. The union sent their idea back in late December. They want players to get 30% of all the money the league makes, plus money for housing and better travel. The league didn't respond for over 4 weeks.
For more than 4 weeks, the league didn't believe the contents of the union's proposal warranted a response. According to a source familiar with the league's thinking, we all know what those parameters are. Everything is stuck around revenue sharing at a 70-30 split, 30% of gross to the players. The league is saying no, this is never happening. We will give you net revenue share, but we are not giving you gross revenue.
That silence wasn't just a trick. It was sending a message. The league thought the proposal was so unrealistic that answering it would be pointless. They were waiting for a better idea, which really means you can't be serious about this. You can understand both sides. The players see sold-out arenas and big TV deals. They're thinking, we're the stars. We deserve our share. But the owners see a league that hasn't made money in 28 years. They're paying for the WNBA with money from the NBA, and now players want 30% of all the money before any bills are paid.
So, this is what she said, according to an ESPN report, quote, "It is not a constructive way to continue on these negotiations," talking about the fact that the league is not engaging with the players at all, especially considering the timeline we're in. Niki Agumake told Front Office Sports in a phone interview, "To give the excuse that our proposal was not adequate is concerning."
Here's the really interesting part. The league's current offer would pay the average player around $500,000. That's a huge jump from the current $100,000 average. They're offering much higher pay, better benefits, and better travel. For a league that loses money every year, that's a really generous offer. But the union keeps talking about housing. This is where they're losing support from fans. You're telling people that players making $500,000 can't afford a place to live. That won't make people feel sorry for them. It will make people roll their eyes.
I mean, it's going to take real compromise from the players. I think the league, I could see the league coming off a little more base salary. All right, one could certainly argue against them deserving that, but I could see them coming off of a little more base salary, a little more. Their offer for a league that's never turned a profit is beyond fair. We've gone over the numbers over and over again.
The truth is simple. If you're making $100,000 now, you can afford an apartment. If you're making $500,000 with the new offer, you can definitely afford one. Maybe not in the fanciest neighborhoods, but you can find a good place near where you work. Get a roommate if you need to. Figure it out like millions of Americans who make way less money than you. This is what's frustrating fans. The players say this is about respect and fair pay. But when you're demanding housing money on top of a $500,000 salary, it stops sounding fair and starts sounding greedy. The league's position actually makes sense. They're saying we'll give you more money, but we have to pay our bills first, because if they're sharing all the money before expenses and the league still loses money, who pays for those losses? The NBA owners who are already helping pay for everything.
I mean, you can find a livable space look, you might not be able to live in New York City or someplace like, or LA. Fans are not going to, we're not going to feel bad for you because of that. All right, you can move out to the middle of the country just like a lot of folks if you get right down to it. It is what it is. Well, we got to live close to the facilities, blah, blah, blah. Okay, figure it out.
Monday is the big moment. The owners are making the trip. They're meeting in person, and something has to happen. Either they agree on a deal or there won't be a season, maybe a lockout or strike. Because if the owners show up and the union still won't change from demanding 30% of all revenue, there's nothing left to talk about. The question is whether Nika and the union leaders are willing to compromise. Right now, they're asking for something the league has said is impossible, and time is running out.
Split the rent. Upgrade your living situation. Whatever you got to do, but the new proposal, there is no excuse for that housing element even being involved in the entire equation. This is it, folks. They're meeting Monday. Something's going to come out of that. I would assume that the WNBA owners, aka many of them NBA owners, probably going to make an in-person line drawn in the sand of some kind. I think there's a chance they can either have parameters for a deal, or we could be coming out of that meeting on Monday, lockout or a strike. But Monday's a big deal now. Tell me what you think. Peace. I'm out.
Here's what's really important about this meeting. It's not just about money, housing, or travel. It's about whether the players' union understands the real money situation of the WNBA. Because the owners do. They've been covering the losses for almost 30 years because they believe in the league and want it to grow. But there's a limit. When you're asking for 30% of all the money from a league that's never made a profit, you're asking the owners to lose even more money. That's not sustainable. That's not a business. That's like charity with a contract. The league's offer to share profits after expenses is actually how professional sports normally works. You pay your bills, then split what's left. The players want to skip that step. They want their money first, before anyone else gets paid and before bills are covered. And the owners are saying no, not because they're cheap, but because the math doesn't work. Think about what the players are really asking for. They want guaranteed money right away, whether the league makes a profit or not. They want housing paid for, even though their salaries would easily cover it. They want better travel, bigger rosters, and better facilities. These requests sound reasonable by themselves, but when you add them all up with the 30% demand, you're not negotiating anymore. You're just telling people what to do. That's why the league stopped responding. At some point, you have to face reality. The WNBA is not the NBA. There isn't that much money yet. There are no profits, and pretending otherwise doesn't make it true. The players keep pointing to record ratings and sold-out arenas, and those things are real. The growth is real, but growth doesn't equal profit. You can have more fans and still lose money if you're spending more than you're making, and that's basic math. What the union seems to miss is that the owners want the same things they do. Everyone wants the league to succeed. Everyone wants player salaries to go up. Everyone wants better conditions and more investment. But you can't spend money you don't have, and you can't demand a percentage that would bankrupt the league. The $500,000 average salary the league is offering is a huge commitment to the players. That's real money. That's life-changing money for most players. And it's coming from owners who are already losing money. That should be enough to make a deal. Instead, it's being treated as an insult because it's not structured the way the union wants. Monday's meeting will show whether the union leadership is serious about making a deal or whether they're willing to risk the season over ideas that don't match the money reality. The owners showing up in person is a big deal. They're not doing that for a casual chat. They're doing it to send a message. This is as far as we can go. If the union walks out still demanding 30% of all revenue, we're headed for no season. There isn't much time left for more arguing. Training camps need to start. Players need to make plans. Teams need to finalize rosters. None of that happens without an agreement. The question is whether Nika Agvumak is willing to be the union president who canceled a season, because that's what's at risk. Not just money or benefits, but whether there's a 30th season at all, so watch what happens Monday. Watch if the union comes back with a new proposal that faces reality. Watch if the owners are willing to budge a little more on pay or other issues. Watch if both sides realize that not compromising is a disaster. Because if this meeting ends without progress or some kind of plan for a deal, we won't get another chance. Time runs out, and instead of celebrating 30 years of the WNBA, we'll be talking about why the league went dark in its anniversary season. The players deserve fair pay. The owners deserve a business that can survive. Those two things can both happen, but both sides have to negotiate honestly based on real numbers, not wishful thinking. Monday will tell us if that's possible, or if we're about to watch the WNBA's biggest crisis since it started. What do you think will happen? Will the union finally change from the 30% demand? Will the owners offer enough to make a deal, or are we headed for a lockout? Drop your prediction in the comments. And if you want updates on what happens, hit that subscribe button because this story isn't finished yet.